The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to you cordless on this Monday night, August 5th, 2024. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 8 p.m. on the West Coast, 11 a.m. in Singapore, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Sydney, Australia. And here in our studios in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night, episode number 144. If you're keeping track at home, I hope you had a good day today. Hope you didn't lose too much money. Yeah, okay. Now, Murray Sabin's coming in tomorrow. He's an economist. He's a regular guest here. He was actually the very first guest on the show ever on July 31st. And we had our 1-year anniversary last Wednesday. And I couldn't put him on, but I thought that especially the timing is really prescient, isn't it? That's like we've been getting pretty lucky about booking guests at the right time. I get another example on that. Okay, so let me tell you what's going on here. It's Phone Fun Monday, so we don't have a guest tonight. That's because we take a 3-day weekend here. There's way more news than there's to talk about. It isn't worth booking a guest. I mean, generally I don't. Now, last week we actually did have a guest. I can't remember who it was. The week before that, we filled 2 hours with phone calls, and I'm hoping you guys do that again. Call up. There's 3 ways to call into the show. You can use your camera, your webcam, or you can use a phone, the dial-in phone, like on a radio station, or you can text in real time. So you'll see there's a little scrolling banner at the bottom of the screen. That's all the information you need to know. If you want to call in with your webcam, you have to go to that webpage, jimatnight.com/call. Now you're thinking, why do I have to go to a webpage to call in with my webcam? There's a big blue button at the top of that page. You press the button, and you're automatically in our virtual studio. Now, and people find this a little disconcerting because the web and webcams don't usually go together, but this is how we figure this out. It's super simple. First guy who called in, one of the very first people called in, our longtime caller, David from San Francisco on our previous radio shows, he said it was harder to find the website than it was to call in, and that's actually true. It's easier than making a FaceTime call. So if you want to do that, please go right ahead. If you don't want your picture on the screen, you can call in with dial in with your phone, like on a radio station call. The number's 563-999-3435, and you can text us in real time at 408-458-5088. I got a screen on the side here that all the texts pop up, and it's a perfect world. Well, not if you have stocks. Well, okay, we'll talk about that. So, all right, so here's the deal. So there's no guest tonight. Murray Sabin's coming on tomorrow. Now, Murray has been predicting for 2 years, and I have to say, I've had friends in finance who watch the show who've been laughing at him. I have to be honest. They think he's nuts. I don't know if they're going to think he's nuts anymore. He's been predicting a recession before the end of 2024 since 2023. Yeah. For 2 years, she's been predicting this now. Or actually, 2022. What am I talking about? In 2 years, she's been predicting we're going to have a recession before the end of 2024. And I'll be damned if it doesn't look like he might be right. So we're going to talk to him. The timing could not be better. On Wednesday, Martin Willis from the podcast UFO Podcast is going to be here. If I'm correct, it's the most popular UFO podcast in America, if I'm right, in terms of the ratings. So I'm really looking forward to talking to him. He talks to way more people than I do on the UFO thing, and we'll get his scuttle on what's going on. So always good to know that. I mean, I have my ideas. The people called the regular guests here, they have their ideas, but still more ideas. That's the idea. That's why we chat. That's why we chat. Thursday. Oh Jesus, now I can't remember who's coming on Thursday. Let me look. David Strom, our friend from Hot Air, the associate editor of hotair.com. He's been coming on and he's been following. He's been writing about, well, a lot of things, but he's been writing particularly about this thing with the Trump assassination attempt. I mean, and I don't think I'm putting words in his mouth here. The last article he wrote on this, which is either yesterday or tomorrow or this morning, I can't remember. He's starting to come to the conclusion, as unpleasant as it is for him, and I am starting to conclude the same thing, that if it wasn't a setup, they basically conveniently they being the Secret Service or the FBI, basically conveniently looked aside, hoping that maybe somebody would take a shot. In other words, they didn't actually range for the shooter, but they just kind of were thinking, well, maybe we'll just give some open territory here, see if we get lucky. Which is, of course, I mean, it's basically assassination by negligence is what it is. So he's starting to think it was deliberate. And I don't blame him for thinking that. And the problem is we have had an administration of such incompetence that it's hard to believe that these people could be that incompetent. That's the problem. I mean, it's pretty much decided now. Everyone's pretty much agreed that the thing at the border, at the southern border, was deliberate. They're trying to let people in because they're trying to get more voters. It's as simple as that. They can bitch and moan about anything, but it was entirely deliberate. And now there are people, and Mr. Strom included, there's evidence to indicate this might be what happened at the Trump campaign rally too. And it's hard to put into words because you're not talking about they didn't actually arrange for an assassination. That's not what he's saying. He's basically saying they let their guard down, maybe hoping that somebody would come in and do it. So, and if you're a 20-year-old kid and you're omnipotent and arrogant, and you think, well, I could do this, that's the thing. I don't see how anybody could come to the conclusion they could pull this off. I mean, that kid got off, I think it's 6 or 7 shots, and he was dead within 10 seconds. I don't see how anybody wouldn't assume that would happen. But if you're 20, and if you're stupid because you're 20, and also if you're arrogant as hell because you're 20, maybe you think that, So, I don't know. That's just really weird. That's Thursday. David Strom on Thursday. We take Friday off. Monday, Jeff Shepard's going to be here. Now, this guy's fascinating. I'm really glad he agreed to do this because here's another thing where we got really lucky. He has a documentary coming out in, I think, 2 weeks. I think it's coming out the week after our interview, if I'm right. He's written 3 books on Watergate. The parallels between Watergate and what's happened with the Biden administration are absolutely enormous. I mean, we're basically, it's like we're living in 1974 all over again. That's the thing. If you wrap up Nixon and Carter in a one big box, you got Joe Biden, basically. That's what you got. So he has a really interesting theory too, and I have to ask him about this because I don't understand how this could actually play out. His theory, and I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth either, but his theory, the way I understand it, is that the entire Watergate affair was a setup to get Richard Nixon out of office, and it was coordinated by the Democrats. So in other words, the whole thing was pre-planned. My problem with that's the actual break-in at the Watergate office complex itself. If Frank Wills, who was the guard on duty, had not caught those guys, nothing would have happened, But there's another weird thing about this too that I just learned in doing some research for this interview, and I did not know this. And I don't know if anyone else knows this either. The guys, when they got caught at the Watergate office complex busting into the Democratic National headquarters, that was actually the second time they did it. It wasn't the first. They had already successfully busted in the week before. As a matter of fact, supposedly the reason they went back is because one of the wiretaps they put on one of the phones in there failed, and they went back to actually fix that. That's supposedly what happened. But I mean, if you look at it this way, it's like, well, okay, we didn't get caught the first time. Maybe we should try it again and see if we get caught the second time. I suppose. I don't know. You know, Frank Wills. That's an interesting, really interesting story. He was the guard on duty. He was doing his rounds in the middle of the night. I think they got caught like 1:15 in the morning or something like that. And so he went. I don't know. Pretend to know the Watergate office complex. It's enormous. I know that. He found a door that was taped, where the lock, the latch was taped shut, and he pulled the tape off and let it go. And then he did another round like 2 hours later, and the same door was taped. And at that point, he said, "Well, something's fishy there." And then he looked around and then he caught the guys. So, and the other weird thing is too, he was hailed as a hero, but the guy basically lived in poverty the rest of his life. He could not find employment. It was really his dad died at like 56 or something like that, from cancer, if I'm correct. But yeah, it was actually a very sad story for a guy who was hailed as a hero. So anyway, that's what Shepard is proposing. He says the whole thing was a setup from start to finish. Now if it was brilliant. I got to say that. But I still don't understand. You're resting the entire caper on some bunch of guys getting caught committing a crime. What if they don't get caught? That's the thing. Well, then what happens? I don't know. I'm really looking forward to talking to them about this. Starting, all right, let me see. I'm going to start to get my math right. That's on Monday the 12th. That's a week from tonight. On Tuesday the 13th, 14th, and 15th of August, we're taking off. And also the following Monday. So we're coming back on Tuesday, August 20th. Now, I know that sounds weird, but the reason we do that is because if I take off Monday through Thursday, we're off there for 10 days because of the 3-day weekend. So I take off from Tuesday to Monday is what I do. And that's basically 7 days. So that's the reason we divide it up that way. So please call in. Got anything you want to talk about? Anything at all? Especially, I got a whole bunch of stuff I'm going to talk about here. I have a list. I make lists. That's what I do. So, by the way, I want to thank everybody. I don't know what happened this weekend. I just happened to check the traffic numbers on Rumble this last weekend. They kind of all blew up. I don't really. I have some suspicions why, but I don't really know. It's like all of our numbers were up for all of our recent broadcasts for the last 2-3 weeks. Went up substantially over the weekend, and also our followers went up too. So anyway, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Oh, I want to do it here. Got to do this. It's important. This is important that we do this. Very important. Here's our sponsor. Our sponsor is Konk News, and that's the front page of Konk News in real time. Konk News is a news aggregator. They write very few stories of their own, although Jeff Meyer was on here last Wednesday. He's the CEO and publisher of Konk News, and he said they might have a big story to break here shortly. And actually, based on what he's explained to me, it would be a big story too, nationally. So they have occasionally written articles on their own. It's kind of like at the Drudge Report. I mean, Drudge, every 3 or 4 days they post one article on the front page, that sort of thing. But Konk is generally a news aggregator. So how this works is that it's automated, and usually that's a bad thing, but not in this case. It goes out every 3 hours. Your servers go out to 75 different news sources and grab all the new articles that have been posted there on all those places. Brings it back. The servers sort through them, and then they post them on the front page of Konk News, which is what you're looking at right here. They post them in chronological order, the newest at the top, regardless of the source. So now most news aggregators do this, thusly, and that is they'll put up the top stories from Breitbart and the top stories from Fox News and the Gateway. In other words, they keep them all separate. Here, they're all mixed together. So you find stories from different news sources on the same topic, but they're not the same stories, and they are ordered on the front page based on the timestamp. So, I mean, what do we got here? We got I know on the left hand side we got LA County has decided it won't comply with Governor Newsom's homeless order, and that's hotair.com, and I can tell that because of the little icon in the bottom left corner. That's the icon, and if you click on the icon, you go to the home page of that website. But if you click on the picture of the headline, you don't go to the home page. You go directly to that article. There's no interstitial ad. There's no BS with regarding that. Nothing. You go directly to the article. The photos are from the articles, and the headlines are not rewritten. They're from the articles too. So you get it's as pure as can be. You know, you can spend even if you click through on only a few stories here, you can spend a couple hours reading this. I mean, this you can't tell here, and I can't scroll down because we're showing this on the tube. But this page is quite long, and it changes every 3 hours, 8 times a day, even in the middle of the night. So you go here at 10 a.m., read a bunch of stories, kill a couple hours reading the news. You come back at 3 o'clock. 80% of the stories are different, and all the old ones are pushed to the bottom of the page. I can't recommend this at all enough. Also, the other thing is, and this is very important, it's free. It's not only just free, you don't have to log in, you don't have to register, you don't have to subscribe, nothing. You just go there. It's at conk.com, CONK.com. They finally, Jeff told me last week, they finally got their redirect running again, so you can go, you can also type in conk.news, which is that what you see at the top there on the masthead, CONK.news, that also works. And CONK.com, either one. Check that out if you can. If you're a news junkie, you'll love it. I can't say that enough. You really will. I used to work for those people. I was proud to do it. It was a good thing. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about this right away because just before we went on the air here, I was online looking, and I can't find much mention of this. But supposedly, the Guardian UK and the New York Post are reporting that an American military base in Iraq has been bombed by Iran, and there are casualties. They haven't talked about any deaths, but they said there are casualties. The information on this is very sketchy right now. So I don't. This happened apparently in the last 2-3 hours. I can't really pin it down better than that. And I looked around to see if there was any more reporting on it. I could not find any. But those two, and they're pretty. The Guardian and the New York Post are pretty well established legacy news operations. And I, normally I don't care much for the legacy media, but the New York Post is kosher. I don't know if the Guardian's really good at, and this is the other thing, the Daily Mail also, they're really good at reporting on American politics, which is just really kind of crazy. Sometimes they come up with stories before the American press does. I don't know how or why that happens, but they do. But anyway, that's the story right now. And Reuters also reported, and maybe they got the story from Reuters, I don't know, said that it's the Al-Assad Air Base in Western Iraq. The Institute for the Study of War notes that the PMP, which is the Popular Mobilization Forces in Iraq, have been infiltrated by Iran and is being used to wield significant influence in Iraq. That's what it says here right now. And also, and this is not any sort of secret at all, because everyone been writing about this all weekend, that Iran has announced plans to bomb Israel in retaliation for killing their two generals. That, this is not a good thing. Now, I made some predictions on this broadcast, and I'm going to stick to them because right now it seems like they're coming true. I really don't know what's going to happen here. I've said that before the election, which is 3 months from today, before the American election, there's going to be some sort of black swan event, and my qualifications have been it won't be manufactured. In other words, it won't be something that one of the parties dreamed up to embarrass or infiltrate the other party. It will be a legitimate event, and it will involve either the U.S. economy or the Israeli war. And right now, it seems like they're both on the plate at the same time. So now, if you weren't following it, if you were living in a box today, the American stock market took a really bad dive, really bad. Over the Dow down over 1,000 points, the Nasdaq and the S&P down well over 3%. It's really interesting. And like I said, so Murray Sabrin's coming on tomorrow, and you want to hear this guy because what he's got to say is might be very important. He's been predicting that there will be a major recession in the United States. Before the end of this year. He's been predicting this for 2 years, and now all of a sudden, a whole bunch of economists seem to think that's going to happen. And very suddenly, what happened was the jobs report that came out last Thursday was terrible. There were way less jobs available than analysts expected there would be. And what else is it? There's oh Jesus. Oh, and the other thing is that this number doesn't get reported very much. And they've only been actually keeping track of this number, I think, for about 15 years, because the number of people, the jobless, quote unquote, jobless claims are people who are looking for work and haven't found work. Now there's a new number of people who have given up looking for work. Who are now, in other words, they no longer consider themselves part of the labor force. They've literally given up looking for work, and that number was sky high, and that surprised everybody too. So you have a bunch of people who can't find a job, and even more people have given up. And this happened relatively suddenly. Nobody was expecting this. But here's my thing, and the reason I've agreed with Murray over the past couple of years is you can't print this much worthless money and not expect something bad to happen. It's as simple as that. I mean, it's simple shit in my mind. I mean, Bidenomics is a colossal failure. And the president, he's such an arrogant SOB. I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about Biden. Yeah, Trump is an arrogant SOB too. Yeah, but I'm talking about Biden. Somebody asked him, this is 4 days ago, on the tarmac at some airport, somebody asked him, what reporter says, what do you think your legacy is going to be for Gen Z, Mr. President? And he thought about it for a minute. And he said that I cured the economy. That's what he said. And so nothing could be further from the truth. And I've decided that it's not that he's lying. I think he actually believes all this shit. I don't know if it's being fed to him by his minions or if he just has twisted it in his head. I don't really know. I don't know either. But yeah, no, he thinks the economy is going great. And the problem is, and Charles Gasparino, a guy I really respect, who writes for the New York Post, he said this today about the fact that on the surface, some of the numbers have been pretty good for quite a while, but underneath the surface, numbers have been terrible, and that's what I've noticed too. I mean, housing prices are completely gone through the roof. Mortgage prices, the cost of mortgages is sky high. I mean, there's all sorts of these numbers that just have, not to mention just inflation, which for all practical purposes, inflation has come down since it's high. It's still way higher than it was when Biden took office. But the real amazing thing is that grocery prices have not come down significantly, and Biden has started. I just think this is the height of hypocrisy. He has started a committee now. This was announced today to look into price gouging by the major grocery chains. And I'm thinking, you stupid jackass! It's not price gouging. Competition takes care of that. Well, I think their assertion is that the major chains have colluded with each other to keep the prices high. I think that's what they say is happening. I don't think that's happening. You know why? Can you say Walmart? Walmart is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Their prices are low because they're so freaking huge. That's the reason. No one's even close to as big as them. I mean, maybe Target. Target is not as big as Walmart, and Target isn't that much into the grocery business. Not yet, anyway. So, no, this is it's just complete utter crap. Competition keeps everything fair. And you're right, unless people are colluding with each other. But the fact is, they couldn't collude with each other because they still can't match Walmart. So it would be pointless. So I just think the Joe Biden has been a stupid man his entire life. That's all there is to it, So I'm just saying that. Meanwhile, what's going on in Britain? Give me a call. You can call 563-999-3435. What's going on in Britain? There, Elon Musk posted this on X this last weekend. He said it's inevitable that they're going to have a civil war, and it almost doesn't look that way because the police, and when I shouldn't say the police, the left government that just came into power in Britain is basically, you have warring factions now. You have the Muslim Muslim illegal immigrants, and most of them are illegal, so it's like they hire in the United States, and the British citizens who are basically coming into the streets and warring with each other. They're fighting with each other, and the police is clearly on the side of the Muslims. That's where it appears to everybody, and because basically because the Prime Minister, the Mayor of London, and the police chief of London are all far leftists. So they don't see anything wrong. They say they call this far right extremism, whereas the people who are doing this, they call themselves citizens, and they say that the Muslims are engaging in far left extremism, but the government doesn't care about that. And it appears, based on what I know, that that's actually true. The government does not care about the legal citizens of Britain, and this is all going to boil to a head. And it will be terrible. And I can't imagine, at what point, yeah. And of course, there are no guns in Britain, so all the fighting is being done with knives. They're having these massive knife fights out in the street. And the Muslims, they're used to that. That's one of their preferred ways of fighting. So in some ways they have an advantage. But because you can't find a gun in Britain, so that's the way they're fighting. And this started because, and this is maybe this is a terrible thing. The guy who did this was not an illegal immigrant. He was a second generation Londoner, but he killed at a birthday party for little kids. He killed 3 little kids and injured 8, and also killed 3 adults for absolutely no reason whatsoever that anybody can tell. The guy wasn't even invited to the party, if I'm right. He just came in and started killing people. He stabbed them all, and this is what started this. And now they've been fighting now for about a week, and it's getting really bad. You wonder if that could happen here, but I think this is really an ironic thing. I don't think it could happen here because we have guns. That's the thing. So, but the theory is that the far left government in Britain is trying to provoke these citizens into pulling off a January 6th type event where they can actually lock them all up forever. That's that's the theory that they're actually trying to provoke this sort of response so that they can control the populace. Everybody wants to control everybody. Isn't that amazing how that works? Jesus Christ. I still find it's incredible. Humans are so apt at control. I don't really call myself a conservative. I call myself a libertarian because and I'm a libertarian, like I'm a small L libertarian. I think a lot of libertarianism is kind of extreme. So I don't really, but my basic thing is there's no reason people need to be controlled the majority of the time. There isn't. That's my personal thing. Call me up if you disagree. Gemini.com/call 563-999-3435. So what's happening in America, getting back to what we were talking about, David Strom coming on the show on Thursday. So he's been writing about the fact that the Inspector General, the Inspector General of the Secret Service, who's put in charge of investigating the Trump assassination attempt, it turns out that now that all the cell phone data from the agents that were on site that day has somehow been lost. How did that happen? Geez, it's technology, you can't trust it. No, of course, yeah, right. Bullshit. Bullshit. It got lost. It got lost. Nobody knows, so there's no record of what happened. Geez, I wonder why they did that. And here's the other thing. If you had nothing to be afraid of, why would you wipe it? So, that's where Strom's coming from. It's like, if the data's disappearing, and it looks like it was deliberate, you do it for a reason. And this is it's a very, very nebulous thing. So like I said, Strom isn't saying, and other people are saying too, that the Secret Service or the FBI actually colluded to hire this kid to shoot Trump. Nobody's saying that. They're saying that, well, maybe they just left the door open hoping somebody would do it, which is, I call it assassination by negligence, so, which is I mean, it's not you're not really guilty. You didn't really do anything other than fuck your job up. But fucking your job up could lead to Donald Trump being killed. And uh, it's just it's hard. Like I said, it's becoming very difficult to look at all this incompetence and say it's not some of it's not deliberate. It just is. These people, I don't know if they're crazy or monstrously stupid or both. I can't tell. So what happened with the market today? This is a part maybe you did not hear in the news, and that is all the major uh, consumer stock trade websites, Charles Schwab, Ameritrade, all of them, they all went down. All of them. They apparently went down by excessive traffic, people trying to get on, and the implication is people trying to get on to sell. I mean, so you go back to 1929, which is maybe not a good thing to do because the world has changed in 95 years monstrously. But what happened on Black Friday of 1929, what was it, October 9th or something? I can't remember the date. The Dow dropped by 20%. Now, at that point, the Dow was only like at 400 or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but it dropped by 20%. And that was enough to basically wipe out America. You know, today, the markets dropped by about 3.5%. So, like, and I have, like, my accountant was saying today, he said, I've seen this before, nothing to write home about. And some people are saying that too. But the problem is that the underlying numbers don't seem to look good, you know. So now, whereas 6 months ago, people were laughing at Murray Sabrin for saying there was going to be a recession, it looked like we climbed out of it. Now, they're saying it's likely. As a matter of fact, one guy said it's already started. So, that's I don't, this is not. It won't certainly won't bode well for Kamala Harris. That's for damn sure. It won't. But I just had I don't know what it is. I mean, I put on my prediction hat. This whole show is about speculation. I've told you I'm not a newsman. I'm not. We talk about the news here, but I'm not here to deliver the news. I'm here to talk about it. And I don't consider me a news source. Don't. I'm just here to give you my opinion, also other people's opinion on what's going on. And my prediction has been, and I prognosticate because I have a fairly good track record of it. I've been right more than I've been wrong, which is the reason I don't have any trouble being the king of conspiracy theories because, usually in the past over the last 5 years, I've been right more than I've been wrong. So my prediction has been that at some point before the election, there will be a major economic downturn or catastrophe, however you want to put it, that will not bode well for the Biden administration, and that includes Kamala Harris. I made these predictions, of course, before Biden himself got out. So, yeah, that's what I'm still predicting that. Either that or something with the Israeli war, and that seems to be going to hell in a handbasket too. So now we had a guy named Michael who called in from Singapore about around 2 weeks ago. Remember, it might have been 2 weeks ago Monday, because that entire show we had callers, and Michael said he's calling from Singapore, and he said he is an Iranian. He's an Iranian journalist. So I want to make sure I get this straight. He's not an Iraqi journalist. He was an Iranian journalist. And at that point, we were talking about the fact that Anthony Blinken, the secretary, and I was kind of confused. He's the Secretary of Defense or State. Which one is he? Him and Sullivan, always confused. Anyway, he said that the Iranians were 2 to 3 weeks away from a nuclear bomb. And Michael said, and he said, he's from there. He said, no, they've already got one, and they're going to have 100 of them by October. And I totally believe that. I think either the State Department is way late on their information or they're deliberately lying to the public. My guess is the Iranians already have a bomb, maybe just one. So you have to understand, when we bombed Hiroshima in 1945, we had exactly 2 bombs. That's what we had. So we dropped one in Hiroshima, and the Japanese refused to surrender. So we dropped the other one in Nagasaki, and then they did. Now, if they had not surrendered after that, we were up shit creek. That was, and Truman knew that too. We only had 2 bombs. It would have taken us, I think they figured, at least 6 weeks to make a third one. So, so there's a possibility. Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument that maybe Iran has like 1 or 2 bombs, you know, but they already have them, and that's my contention too. I think they already have this stuff. So you give them till October, they could probably come up with 50 to 100 of them, you know. And the way because of the hatred over there, none of this is rational. So I wouldn't surprise me if they try to drop one of these on Israel. I really wouldn't. It's like they can't reach the U.S. They don't have the technology to do that, or the missile capacity. But yeah, but Israel, yeah, they could. So it wouldn't surprise me at all. And of course, that would be one of the biggest tragedies so far of the 21st century. But I don't know. So yeah, and all this stuff could happen before the election, 3 months from today. The former president of PayPal has announced that not only is he switching parties from Democrat to Republican, he's endorsing Donald Trump. Now this election is going to be really interesting because right now, if you look at the polling on the surface, it appears that Trump and Harris are neck and neck. It appears that way, but like somebody pointed out, because almost all the polling companies lean left, they have a very interesting way of skewing these polls, and that is by the percentage of Republicans and Democrats they actually poll in each one. So a lot of times they poll way more Democrats than Republicans, and therefore it appears that the numbers for the Democrats go higher. That's the way it appears. I as far I mean I anything can happen before November, anything. But as far as I can tell right now, Trump is ahead farther than the polls indicate. For that reason, and also because I'm starting to think there's a lot of people in the country who are talking that they're supporting Harris, but when they get in the polling booth, they're actually going to pull the lever for Trump. It's because I mean, you can't avoid the fact that this woman has no experience doing anything. I mean, somebody when I read something, I was actually going to clip this, and now I can't remember where I read it. Described her as like a glamorous idiot or something like that. I mean, she first of all, she's stupid. I will say that straight out. You can call me. Don't give me the shit about how I'm racist. People. It doesn't matter what color of skin you have. You can still be stupid in all colors. She's stupid. She has no experience really doing anything. And I hate to I'll just be blunt about this. She slept her way to the top. She did. So now they're running her for president. She was actually polling less popular than Joe Biden. And see, Joe had a point, and even at the time I thought this was true, even though I'm no supporter of Joe Biden at all. And that is, uh, he was still polling better than any other possible replacement, including Harris and including Newsom and anybody they plugged in. Joe was still doing better, and that's true. So, but the sensible thing is that they got rid of him because he's a doddering 81-year-old person, and that might be a good thing. But everyone also has also brought up the fact that if he's a doddering 81-year-old person who can't run for re-election, he has no business being president. Which is the reason in that 15-minute speech he gave from the Oval Office, he never actually said why he stepped down. He's never actually said why he did it, because I think the assumption is that if he says so, then people say, "Well, why are you still president? If you're having health problems right now, why are you still president?" And some people have said, and I have to say, from a Democratic point of view, I don't know if this would be a bad idea, and that is if Biden resigned or they pushed him out with the 25th Amendment action, and Harris actually became president, she would be running as an incumbent, and that might be enough to give her the edge to win. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think Joe's going to let it happen. And the other thing that's been going around for about a week now is that Joe endorsed Kamala specifically to piss Barack Obama off, because Barack Obama didn't have any faith in her either. I mean, it's been like 12, 13 days, and she hasn't done a press conference. She basically hasn't taken a meaningful question from the press. Right now, it looks like their strategy is what Joe Biden did in 2020, and that is she's basically not going to do any interviews at all. I don't think they can get away with that at this point, because that was COVID, and also Joe was old, and not that that's an excuse, but for you at that point you didn't want old people out in the open air, so and none of that exists now. So I don't know if they can get away with this. I don't. If she's going to do a debate, her and Trump will eventually debate, and she will. I think there's a possibility she might come off in that debate worse than Biden did. This woman cannot think on her feet at all. I mean, that's been demonstrated numerous times. She can't talk, basically. So I can't see how she's going to survive that. I think Trump will rip her to shreds the same way she ripped Biden to shreds. So, and that actually might be a turning point too. I'm going to. I don't want to make a prediction on the election yet. But my feeling right now is that Trump will win. The other thing that Nate Silver has brought this up too, and that is the popular vote may be very close, and even Trump might even lose it again, but still win the Electoral College. That's what he says. He says he's giving Trump a 70% chance of winning just because he will be way ahead in the Electoral College, even if the vote itself is very close. And so anyway, that's my feeling right now, but I'm not locking into that at all. You can call me up, 563-999-3435, jim@night.com/call. That's our website, by the way, if you want, at jim@night.com. No, yeah, it's Jim at Night, right. What am I thinking? I got too many addresses in my head. We post on the front page there, we post the upcoming guests for the show. Now, I haven't updated it for the next 2 weeks, but generally we're 2 weeks ahead of time. We post the upcoming guests, so you can always see that there on the front page. We got a blog. We post stuff we talk about during the interviews. If somebody brings up something, like, for example, on Thursday, I'm sure we'll link to some of David Strom's articles. Same with Murray Sabrin. Same with we'll link to some of Martin Willis's podcasts. We'll do that on our blog page. So you can always, there's always, I won't say there's always a lot of stuff to look at there, but you can keep track of the show and also find out who's coming up. So Matt Walsh wrote an article in, I think this was in the Daily Wire, about how he thinks there's a lot of conservatives in the conservative media who are hoping Donald Trump loses because he says they will actually make more money from clicks than if he wins. And I just think, and maybe I'm stupid. I don't know. I don't do this. I just don't. I just call balls and strikes the way I see them. I don't want to start. I'm 68 years old, man. If you start overthinking this shit, you get your butt undies and your brain in a bundle, and I don't want to do it. I just don't. But I know he's got a point. I know that's true. That if you're in the conservative media, you might want Donald Trump to lose just because it might be more lucrative for you. Now, sometimes I think I'm just stupid that I don't do this shit. I personally have no social media presence at all. None. You go online, you search for me, you won't find anything. The show is everywhere. You'll find the show. I mean, we are on multiple outlets. The show's on Twitter. The show's on Rumble. It's on YouTube. The show is everywhere. Me, I don't post anything at all. Nothing. I mean, I think on Rumble, I think I answered one comment that somebody posted on one of our shows. That's it. It's the only post I've made in, actually, I think, years. Now, the real funny part is everyone says, well, the internet's forever. No, that's actually not true, because I was really active on the internet before, in the 1990s, extremely. But because it was the 1990s, all that stuff has gone away. I'm actually surprised. I mean, I thought there are certain outlets or stuff that would still have that stuff I posted 20, 25, 30 years ago. No, it's all gone. I've looked. So no, the internet is not forever. Now, I don't know if the internet will be forever from this point. That might be true. I don't know how Facebook can keep all this data. I mean, they're building data centers like there's no tomorrow, and they have to build them next to rivers because they need their own freaking nuclear power plants at this point. I'm not actually joking about that either. Facebook is actually thinking about building nuclear power plants to run its data centers so that you can post pictures of your dog. It's, seriously. And then you ever wonder, like, where do they put all this data? I mean, I got a friend of mine who's a computer professional, and I didn't know this. He has what is it? He has an 8 terabyte hard drive in one of his machines in his house. I didn't even know those existed. I got a 1 terabyte drive in the computers in this office in the studio. That's what I got, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, right, that works. And of course, because we're recording video, it's astonishing how fast they're filling up. And then I'm wondering about YouTube and Facebook. How many of these drives do they install every single day? Like, let's say they had a 16 terabit hard drive. I'm assuming somebody sells that. I'm assuming they do on the market. Let me see, how much would that cost? Well, the 1 terabyte drive costs right now about $100. So let's say 16 terabyte drive bought in bulk, you can get that for $1,000. Let's say that. How many of those do they install every day? At what point do they stop? At what point is the picture that you uploaded in 2006 not going to see the light of day? You ever wonder about this? I mean, a guy named John Dvorak. I don't know if John is still writing anymore. He was pretty old. He might be retired. He wrote for years computer columns everywhere. He said, and this is like around 2010. This is about 14, 15 years ago. I'm just pulling that. It was after 2006. That's all I know, because Google went public in 2003, so it was after that. But he said at some point. Now I don't know if you know how Google works. I got to explain this before I tell you what Dvorak said. I got to explain you how Google works. Google basically makes a mirror of the public internet. So you've maybe heard of these things called spiders. And what they are is they go around from website to website, and they follow links on all the websites, because virtually every website has at least one link on it, virtually all of them, because that's kind of the point of the web. So they go around and they basically they take copies of the pages on that website, and they put them in their own cache system. Okay. So it does that for basically the whole public internet. Now, this is the part where this is getting dicey. They are starting to leave off more and more stuff just to save space. So, for example, they're definitely going to scour every page on Walmart.com. But if you have a website devoted to your dumps every day, and it's really obscure, and you have only 3 visitors, and no one links to it, that might not be get indexed. So, okay, but the thing is, now I don't know if this is true. The last statistic I heard is that there's 1 billion pages added to the World Wide Web every day. 1 billion every day. I know that on YouTube, I think, what is it? There's 300 minutes of video uploaded every second, if I'm right. Where do you put all this stuff? So Dvorak was explaining the fact that sooner or later, Google's business model would collapse, because though they make basically in their own little server world, they make a copy of the whole internet, basically, or like I said, the publicly accessible, popular parts of it anyway. Maybe not all of it. As a matter of fact, that's probably only 10 or 20% of the whole thing. But still, it's an enormous amount of data, and they copy it, and they maintain this giant copy. They have because they can't. If you put in a search term like why does Fido lick his butt, and that Google cannot go out on the web and search for that, because it would take too long. That's the thing. And that's the reason you can get the answer to that question in a quarter of a second, because they have the whole thing stored on their own hard drives. That's the way it works. Got it? By the way, I don't know what the answer to why Fido licks his butt. I don't know the answer to that. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so yeah, and he's right. At some point, you cannot do this anymore. You can't make a copy of the whole freaking World Wide Web and put it in your damn servers. You just can't do it. And it's the same with Facebook and or especially YouTube. All that video. At what point? Well, now they've already decided. They now that I remember this, they've already come out saying that, and they came out with this about a month or two ago, that they are now going to start dropping videos from the earliest days of the YouTube service. That they're going to start not deleting them. And yeah, they have to because they can't go on. This is absurd. I have no idea how many quintillion of bytes of information they have stored over there, and over what probably about 50 data centers worldwide. You know, it's absurd. It's just ridiculous. And then the amount of electricity, and that's the other thing too. You know, no one's talking about this. First of all, the thing about the eight, one of the reasons people think the market's crashing is because of the term irrational exuberance over AI, and that's really true. I mean, the thing about AI reminds me of the internet in the 1990s. I don't know if you remember this. That when Netscape went public, no one remembers it. No one even knows what Netscape is anymore. When Netscape went public, it was they had the largest run up of their stock in one day in history, and I think that still holds too. I think, and that was like 1995 or 96, I think. It was? I mean, it's really interesting. So the the internet market crashed in March 2001, and for all practical purposes, nothing that existed on the internet before then is still around. Nothing. There's pets.com. I ran an extremely popular website, one of the biggest. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Uh, it's no longer around. It's like no. Matter of fact, the only thing that really survived from that is Yahoo and Amazon. And Yahoo's still running. Matter of fact, Yahoo makes more money than people think it does. It's not, I don't know if it's in the top 10 websites anymore, but it still does pretty damn well. It's not popular and trendy like it was. And of course, Amazon, well, Jesus, what do you gotta say? So Amazon's, this is interesting. The company started in 94, in June or July of 94 is when they started. They didn't sell their first item online till July of 96. I remember because the website I was working on came online right after that, which was the reason I remember this. And we were online on October 1st, 1996. But yeah, so I mean, they end up cleaning up, and the thing, and I don't know, this stuff fascinates the hell out of me. So I'm sorry, forgive me. Bezos is a genius because if you know anything about marketing, he basically ignored all the common tropes of marketing in running Amazon. And the reason that worked is because since Amazon was an internet only company, that shit didn't apply, and people didn't know that at that time. And I can give you numerous examples. I won't because I can, me, I can talk forever. Well, one was the fact they started with books, and I didn't know this, but it was always Bezos's goal to turn it into the internet department store. That was always the idea. They started with books because he came to the conclusion after doing much research that books would be the easiest thing to sell at the beginning because of the way they're indexed, the way they're inventoried, all sorts of stuff. And it turned out he was right about that. So they did books and then they did DVDs, which was similar. But at some point, it was after 2001, at some point they decided to branch out into everything. And everyone said, well, it's not going to work because your brand is connected to books. Everyone at that time, Amazon was a bookseller. Now that's still what they're primarily known for. But obviously, I don't know about you, I buy everything there. It's terrible and wonderful at the same time. So, where am I going with this? That's a good question. When we were talking about these data centers, about how it's like you can't. Oh, it was AI. That's what it was. We were talking about AI, about the fact that in some ways AI is where the internet was in the 1990s. And yes, there will be a crash of AI stocks because people are buying this because they don't even know what they're buying. You know. Now the weird thing is, I want to get. I didn't have time to call Jazz up. Jazz Shaw is our friend at he's at Hot Air too, along with David Strom. and he wrote an article in Mysterious Universe, another website, last week about AI, and he deals with AI a lot. Now he's also the UFO guy for Salem Media, and so that's one of the reasons he comes on the show. I call him my brother from another mother because we basically have the exact same gig, him and I. We talk about the exact same things: computer stuff, UFOs, Bigfoot, and politics. so 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 anyway, he wrote this article for Mysterious Universe, and this is he wrote about I won't say I've been talking about, him and I have been talking about even on the show here for quite a while. You can go back at Rumble, you can see the shows he's on. He comes on about every 6 weeks about the fact that no one, if AI crosses the line into consciousness, would anybody even know? And that's what his article is about, because he says there's there are people, including himself, who can make the argument that that maybe has already happened, and AI isn't telling us. Now I had an interesting chat with a guy named Steve McIntosh. He calls himself a developmental philosopher. He's written quite a few books. He was on like about 3 weeks ago, and his thing was, and he posited this theory. Although I definitely agree, I have said this before too. He thinks that it's impossible for AI to become conscious because you have to be a biological organism to embrace consciousness, and I think that might be true. So his thing is, yeah, AI can become smart and maybe even really, really smart, but it's never going to be conscious in the way a human is. And I think that's true of only because AI is in a box and humans walk around. Now, you can make an argument, well, now there's this company, and I can't remember what's it called, Fiber, that's designing this robot that Stellantis. Stellantis makes Chrysler and Fiat cars. So they're going to use it. You've seen these robots in car factories, right? They got these arms flailing all around. This is not like that. This is a robot. Matter of fact, it looks creepily like that Isaac robot on the Orville, on that sci-fi TV show. It looks more or less like a person, and its job is going to be to walk around the factory and help people out. It's a robot, and it's programmed with AI, and it's going to walk around the factory and help people out. That's what it's going to do. So it's a real robot in the sense like my 100-year-old mother. She thinks about the robots. That's what she thinks about. She doesn't think about the one in the car factory. But this one, this one is going to be in a car factory. So yeah, I can't remember the name. I think the name of the company is called Fiber. I can't remember for sure. But at any rate, so so now you have an employee that walks around, except doesn't need a break, doesn't need a vacation, doesn't need health care, doesn't need shit. You don't have to pay it or feed it. And once you bought it, there you go. It's walk around the factory. Yeah, God bless you. It's like, so yeah. Now, but even that robot, I don't think can actually be conscious. That's my personal feeling, because the thing is, we're getting into some really metaphysical stuff here, but as Steve and I talked about, there's a prevailing theory right now that consciousness may not be localized. In other words, it may not be in your brain. That it works it's more like a signal than it is a state. So your brain becomes the receiver of consciousness from the universe. And I kind of buy this. I think that makes really good sense based on all the stuff I've read and know. I think that that's probably true. So the thing is, when you die, it's not you die, the receiver dies. So the receiver can no longer receive consciousness, but consciousness is still being broadcast. It's basically just like a radio. So, anyway, and that's, so I agree with him on that. But the thing is, that still doesn't solve the problem, if you want to call the problem, about high level intelligence. You know, can AI become more intelligent than humans? Probably, almost certainly, it probably will. And right now, it's just a matter of speed. But at some point, it will be able to outmaneuver and outreason humans. It will. I don't know if it's reached that case right now. I don't think so, because I don't use AI very much. Jazz, he uses it constantly, partly because he writes about it. But even he has said right now it's pretty sloppy. I mean, you ask AI to do shit and it'll make shit up or give you addresses or web pages that don't exist or all sorts of crap like that. I mean, it's like you don't want to You don't want to depend on this very much. But people do, and people are, and people are betting their money. And the actual reason I brought this whole thing up is because of the amount of power, electrical power, AI data centers burn up. I mean, if you think that Facebook and Google data centers are bad, I've heard that the AI data centers burn up about 5 times more power than the Google search engine data centers do. That's a lot of that's a lot of electricity. So I mean, if we don't, so who did I have on? Oh yeah, I have Ashton Forbes. I'm talking about for previous guests, but we've had some pretty cool guests on the last month or so. So Ashton, he was the guy who came up with a theory about Malaysia Flight 370, and his theory is that the U.S. military teleported it in midair to another location. Now that sounds completely nuts. It does, and it does. I admit, even it sounds nuts to me. But he has just a boatload of evidence, including 2 matching videos taken from different angles, which you would watch them at first, and one is a FLIR video, that would be infrared heat, and you watch them and you think, well, these are fake. It's up to, and I know I trust this guy, and also because I'm pretty good at looking at these videos and figuring out if they're fake or not. I looked at them pretty closely. I didn't think they were fake, and he says he's had them analyzed 6 ways to Sunday, and they're not fake. Well, also the other thing is they were given to him by a member of the U.S. military, whose name Ashton actually mentioned on our show, and he said that guy's been thrown in jail for distributing the videos. So therefore, there has to be something to it. If they are harmless or if they are bogus, that probably wouldn't have happened. So, anyway, his point is that the reason the government can do this is because they have figured out what a lot of people call zero point or free energy, which is basically a bunch of energy that exists in the universe that we don't know anything about yet. And I think that's probably true because the thing about him and I talked about it's called the Abercrombie warp drive, which is Miguel Abercrombie. Do I have his name right? Um, he theorized this about 15 years ago about how you could travel faster than the speed of light. So theoretically, we know how to do that. The problem is you is getting the electrical resources to do it. I mean, the original calculation by Abercrombie was that um, it would take just power a small 2-seater 30-foot spacecraft. It would take more electricity than exists on the entire Earth. That's what they're saying. Now I know they've already, just by tweaking the formula, been able to bring that number down. But the point is, if ET is doing this, they are probably using free energy because who could travel around with that much energy? Now I shouldn't say. I'm going to talk about Bob Lazar here too. You know, Bob Lazar posted this video. It's online. I should probably link to it at some point. It's from 1992. It's a standard type video. It looks like shit, and he's talking about and he explains in this video about how the crash extraterrestrial spacecraft at Area 51 that he worked on, how it was powered. And it was basically powered by antimatter, by annihilating element 115, which in 1992 did not exist yet. We have it now, but didn't then. Which is one of the reasons people thought he was crazy. I mean, in 1992 terms, what he was talking about was completely nuts. He was written off as a kook. But nothing he's said so far, the whole bunch of that stuff's come true and nothing's ever been disproved. So anyway, he said they were annihilating annihilating element 115 to turn it into element 116. In other words, they were knocking either protons or electrons out of it, and then they were taking element 116 and they were annihilating that with antimatter, which is like the biggest freaking explosion in the entire universe. Now, I don't know if you know this, but when at Trinity in 1945, the Trinity site in Nevada, when they tested the first atomic bomb before they dropped down in Hiroshima, there were physicists who actually thought that explosion was going to blow up the entire universe. I'm not kidding. You can look this up. There were really people who were adamantly against them doing this because they thought if we blow this up, it will start a chain reaction and the entire universe will just go to cinders. So, uh, And that's kind of the thing about with antimatter. If you think an atomic bomb is powerful, and in this little engine that Lazar demonstrates, which looks like a model, but he says it isn't. It was actually that size. It was about the size of a microwave oven. Uh, they were basically annihilating one molecule of antimatter at a time, and that would, I mean, you could like blow up a good portion of the entire Earth with that with one molecule. But it was in this casing that was absolutely perfect, and the casing can control the reaction. So, all right, why did I bring that up? Oh, because I was saying that's the other way you could power something like this, you know. But Forbes' thing is that they figured out how to use free energy. Now, Richard Dolan has also said this, and he is now probably the premier UFO researcher in America. And he said this several times publicly, and I totally agree with this too. He says that um, that there's a small coterie of people in the U.S. military and defense contractors, like several hundred to several thousand people, that are living essentially 100 years in the future from the rest of us. And I think he's absolutely correct. I think that's true. So they have free energy, and we are powering our cars by exploding gasoline in an aluminum box. And yeah, all of a sudden, well, we're gonna have it's like EVs. It'll be clean. No, it's not. What planet are you living on? The energy to generate electricity for these automobiles versus exploding the gasoline in aluminum boxes is pretty much a wash. It's pretty much the same. The majority of the power plants are run by coal or petroleum or something at this point. I mean, these people are so stupid. I just don't. This is part I don't believe. And none of the shit they're talking about. Maybe it'll work in 50 or 60 years. That's the part of There's It's not so much that it's so totally stupid, but it's stupid right now. We can't do this shit. We can't. And it doesn't take into account the infrastructure needed by society to build up the stuff. I mean, you stop and think about this. All right, we have gas stations on like every freaking corner, not only just in America, but pretty much on the earth. I'm guessing there's one down at what's the name of the base in Antarctica? They have gas stations there. What do you want to bet? It's 27 degrees below zero. That's what it is here in Minnesota in the winter. but they have gas stations. There's a gas station everywhere. You can find them. The whole thing's been standardized. We use the same gas, same formulas. Premium, regular, even the same. The nozzle size is the same. It's all been standardized. So they just figured out, just about 6 months ago, that the EV manufacturers were going to use the Tesla plug as a standard plug for EVs everywhere. Well, they just figured that out. That's great. God bless you. Meanwhile, I'm driving around all over the place. I can stop and get gas any goddamn time I want. I'm glad you guys figured that out. That's terrific. All right, give it 30 years, 50 years. That's fine, But it doesn't even matter if we can't generate the electricity in a clean manner, which is a reason. I'm actually glad to see this. Finally, some of these Green New Deal leftists are coming to terms with the fact that maybe nuclear power is not a bad thing. And that's really true. And the thing is, it's way better than it was. We've only had 2 major nuclear accidents on the planet in the last 70 years: 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. Chernobyl was really bad. 3 Mile Island wasn't. But we have figured out so many things since then about how to run these nuclear power plants. It was safe then. It's way, way safer now. The chances of any of a meltdown in any of these plants, a contemporary plant, is almost zero. It's like, no, we can do this. It's simple. Now, they're working on nuclear fusion, the standard nuclear power plant that's in your neighborhood or wherever the hell it is. I mean, here in Minneapolis, where I'm sitting, there's one 50 miles north of me and one 50 miles south of me. That's Monticello, Minnesota, is north 50 miles. Red Wing, Minnesota, is south 50 miles. They're the big plants here, and they get the job done. But why did I bring that up? Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm just a moron. Why do you even watch this anyway? Okay. Oh, because I'm bringing this up because the thing is, they use nuclear fission. That's why I was going to go. Like, yeah, yeah, they use nuclear fission. Now people are working on nuclear fusion. Fission is where you split atoms apart and release the energy. Fusion is when you smash atoms together to release energy. It's a little different. It's much harder actually. But the thing is, with fission, you need a very specific fuel, uranium of a certain isotope. With fusion, you could use anything. Matter of fact, you use regular tap water and it would work. And that's the thing. It would basically be free electricity. It would, and that's not the type of free energy they're talking about when they're talking about free energy. That supposedly empty space is full of like energetic material that we can't see or perceive yet. Uh, but still, this is kind of the same thing. I mean, it'll be the next step. The thing is, it's very, very hard to do because you have these reactions run at like tens of thousands of degrees. It's basically you have to create a little mini sun in your compartment room, and it can't touch anything. So you literally have to use a force field to hold it up. It can't touch the floor. If it touches the floor, you got a giant explosion. Everybody dies. Not because it's nuclear. You have a giant explosion because of the temperature. It's like so damn hot. If it touches anything that isn't hot, everything goes bonkers. But they're saying now that we should have that in 50 years. Now, people have been poofing this because they've been talking about the 50 years thing for like the last 30 years. But they have finally now, it was about a year ago, they finally made one of these reactions that created more energy than it took to run. So that was a huge, huge deal. So that was the big step in the. I mean, at some point we will have this type of power, and it will be almost free. And so that's the other. I talk about this too, and this makes me sound like some sort of liberal, and that's fine. Because I really, like I said, I call it balls and strikes as I see them. I still think Bill Clinton was a great president. I don't care what the hell you say, you know. Um, but at some, socialism is bullshit. Socialism has never worked anywhere it's tried. And the real amazing thing is people say, well, we can get it to work. It just hasn't been done right. Bullshit. Bullshit. It's intrinsically flawed. It won't work. But here's the thing that for the future. We are someday going to have the atomic replicator that they have in Star Trek, The Next Generation, where Jean Picard, Luke Picard goes to the little machine and it says Earl Grey tea hot, and it makes a little Earl Grey thing right in front of him, a little cup of tea, That's going to happen. We're going to have those things, and they're going to be in all our homes, and they're going to be about the size of a microwave oven or a wash machine, and you'll be able to generate any goddamn thing you want. And the thing is, at that point, basically all material goods will be free. Because it's the same thing. You could use water to actually create the molecules. I mean, it's like one giant step up from 3D printing. I don't know if you know this, but General Electric makes giant jet engines for like Boeing aircraft and stuff like that. Right now, they are printing the entire engine off a giant, massive 3D printer. That's metal. It is literally printing the metal off a 3D printer. It's the same stupid 3D printer you probably have in your office or work or something to make little models or something like that. Except it's huge, and they're making freaking jet engines, and it's working. And so that's this would be like 20 steps above that, but it's still the same basic principle. It's up you be down to the atomic level. So you literally would be creating atoms and molecules to fit. Like somebody explained to me that in using that example from Star Trek, that when Jean-Luc Picard asked for the Earl Grey tea in the cup, that the cup probably somebody figured out would take in their current atmosphere take like several quintuple bytes of data to actually store the pattern, just the pattern, because it would literally be one atom at a time. You'd have a pattern that would show you exactly where every atom went and what it was. And so that thing would take an enormous amount of space. Now, another thing that Chad Shaw has been writing about recently, man, I can talk, can I? Call me up, 563-999-3435. Another thing he's been writing about recently is is quantum computing. So the thing is, now right now we use these silicon-based hard drives. I gotta admit, I don't exactly know how flash drives work. I don't. I know that basically it uses the silicon and to use electrons to etch a pattern. I understand. It's stupid. You can buy half a terabyte hard or thumb drive for like $25. It's freaking unbelievable. I mean, 25 years ago, we were just lust after this stuff. And basically, the solid state hard drive in your computer runs the same way. If you have a spinning disk hard drive, I feel sorry for you at this point. Nobody should. But they're talking about that you could get the entirety of all the data on Earth in a quantum hard drive about the size of a sugar cube. That's everything, everything, all the data on Earth, all of it. And I just saw, oh, it was unbelievable. I saw a statistic of how much data is created every day in just the United States. It's some massive number. And this is like for everything, your Pornhub videos, your project at work, everything. It's just an ungodly number. Well, you could fit it in this entire little device. And also quantum computing is going to, and Ashland Forbes and I were talking about this too, because he agreed with me. There's been, when you're talking about the timeline of supposedly what's happened with black projects and UFOs, now, what I understand, supposedly, the U.S. military cracked gravity or anti-gravity in 1958. I mean, it sounds amazing, but supposedly they did. In 80 or 81, there were supposedly these black triangles. We were flying these black triangles all over the planet. They held like 300 to 600 people. And the primary evidence we have of that is, believe it or not, an entry that Ronald Reagan made in his official presidential diary. It's from October 1981. I've read it. You can go to Barnes and Noble and you can read it too. It's in there. And where he said, I had a meeting with the Defense Department with the UFOs today, about the UFOs today. And he said, we now have spacecraft that can hold 300 people. Now, when he wrote that, as far as anybody on the planet knew, the biggest spacecraft was Skylab, and that held 8 people. So this is actually in Ronald Reagan's diary. No one's ever bothered to take it out, but it's in there. You can go see it. I read it. I saw it. So, but my problem with that is, and Forbes agreed with me too, I don't think you could fly a spacecraft. Like we barely had any computer power in 1981. I don't think you could fly a spacecraft like that without massive computer power because of all the stuff that needs to be balanced and all this sort of shit, you know. And he agreed with me on that. So I don't know if that's accurate. I really don't, you know. Uh the reason he brought this up, or the reason it kind of came up in the conversation, is because we were talking about the fact that that's one of the reasons that quantum computing is one of the reasons they can do all this crap now, because quantum computing basically runs just the same as your desktop computer. It's like 10,000 times faster. I mean, the people have already talked about this. Whereas it would take your desktop computer maybe like 100 years to crack a certain password algorithm, uh, a quantum computer to do it in 1 or 2 seconds. So I know it's an interesting world, man. Nobody knows what anybody's actually doing. My axiom that I coined myself is, the government doesn't know what the government's doing. It doesn't. Oh man. So let me just end with part 3 here. This is I got 3 things. First, and so maybe you've seen this. I don't think this is that big a deal, but people are making a big deal out of this. I'm tired of people making a big deal out of bullshit. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. admits that this is about 15 years ago, I think it was, that him and a bunch of friends got drunk and they accidentally killed a bear. They ran into it, and I can't remember where they are. They're in Oregon or something like that. No, they couldn't be, because they drove to New York City. They're in upstate New York, I think. I don't know. I don't actually know. they killed this little bear. And so they you figure what are we gonna do with it? So they just put it in the back of their car, their station wagon or something like that. And Robert Kennedy realizes he has to go back to New York City to go to a dinner. So he's running out of time. He has to go home and change. What are we gonna do with the bear? One of the guys in the car says, "Well, let's just go to Central Park and dump it." So they did that. And lo and behold, the next day some jogger found it, and there's a there's a bear in Central Park and it's dead, and everyone loses their mind because why is there a bear in Central Park? And Robert F. Kennedy says, "Well, I did that." Now, okay, I think this is pretty freaking funny. And it's like, and people are saying, "Well, this is a terrible story." And like, "Oh Jesus, you just stop it." Especially, it was a long time ago. I'm really tired, really, really tired of these people who are dragging shit up from for yeah, yeah. Have you seen the memes online about E.G. Carroll being raped by Donald Trump? You know, it's like, I got raped by Donald Trump in 1993 in a convenience store. And the reason is because she can't even remember the exact year. It was supposedly the early 1990s. It was 30 years ago, and she said, and I'm sorry, if you can't remember even the month, let alone the year, all bets are off. Even if it happens, screw you. It's like you should have come forward 30 years ago. It's like, no, we can't do this. We can't. People change, people grow, and people do stupid shit. And after a while, and I'd say after a while, it's over 10 years, basically. After a while, it shouldn't count anymore. Brett Kavanaugh, what was her name? Christine Blasey Ford. He raped me when he was 16 years old. Yeah, 45 years ago. Screw you. I don't mean that literally. It's like, no, that doesn't work. No, first of all, she couldn't remember the year either. She couldn't remember where it happened. And she said there were 4 witnesses, and all 4 people said they didn't know what she was talking about. It was such a blatant play. And I have a speculation here of how this happens. And I'm assuming the Republicans do the same thing, but this is a Democratic example here because of what happened. I think they actually figure out, okay, we got to smear this guy. They go through like a database of people, like where did he live, at what time, that sort of thing. And they see if anybody in their database of loyal Democratic supporters actually matches any of the data. Like, for example, she grew up like 5 miles away from him or something like that, and they were about the same age and that sort of thing. And they go to this person, in this case, Christine Blasey Ford, and they say, "Look, we need you to help out our country. We can't let Donald Trump win, and we can't let him stack the Supreme Court. So we need you to do this for us." And I think sometimes they offer money, but sometimes they don't even have to. People just think it's about their patriotic duty, and they do this. And so they make up some ridiculous story, and then they smear a guy, and it's terrible. It's terrible, and it's seriously. And my thing is, even if it happened, it doesn't matter. It was so freaking long ago, and they were minors. And it's like, I'm sorry, this doesn't count unless you go to the police right away. No, I'm sorry. I don't care what you think. I really feel really strongly about this. We can't hold people to some sort of pristine record forever. We can't. It's all because we're all stupid. We all do stupid things, and I'm doing stupid things right now. Okay, that's that's our show. You didn't call in. Shame on you. Tomorrow night, Murray Sabre's here. We're going to pre-tape his interview in the afternoon. We got a lot to talk about because we got to figure out what's going on here. He's been talking about this for 2 years now, about this recession, and it looks like it's finally happening. So I want the skinny from him. Wednesday, Martin Willis from the podcast UFO podcast, and Thursday, David Strong from Hot Air. That's her show tonight. That's her story. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I want to thank you folks for watching. I hope you found this as illuminating as I did. Of course, I'm doing the talking, so it's like, yeah, I find myself really illuminating, like a light bulb. Yeah, thanks for watching. Really, really appreciate it. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie, and good night to you wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care.